they might not know that there's closing costs coming up, which is development levies, and how to calculate and transfer taxes, and even how to calculate the HST that's owing on the profit that the buyer has to pay, or any kind of assignment fees. Who pays that? And all those things. There's a lot of you're right. There's a lot of nuances.
Sounds very difficult.
Look, I get it. The Toronto real estate market is confusing. Whether you're a new or experienced investor or just looking for a home to raise your family in, join us at Broadview Table Talks as we sit around the table with my friends and talk about the real estate and the ever-changing market in Toronto.
Okay, Broadview Table Talks, episode 51? 50.
I think this
51.
is 51.
One of the two. Anyway. All right. So what are we talking about today? So we scoured the deep depths of the internet, Reddit, basically.
Mainly Reddit.
Yeah. And Neil came up with some questions for us that people were talking about in real estate.
Yeah. So basically, there's just a lot of people who are asking questions, and a lot of them actually weren't answered. So I feel like it would be a good part for us, as being realtors, to be able to help them out. Awesome. So maybe I'll just reply in the thread a link to this video, right?
Okay.
Here's the first one. We're going to start off very easy here. Very simple. It's an assignment sale question. So for assignment sales, what are things to look for to make sure it's a legit transaction? Does the builder provide any document such as an APS with the new owner name? So I guess he's asking, how do I know
that you're not getting scammed when
you're not getting scammed?
Okay, so there's a lot of assignment messages on Facebook, on Kijiji, on WhatsApp, all the different group chats, WeChat and things like that.
Yeah.
And you're right, there could be a lot of fraud out there because you don't know who you're giving money to. So the number one thing in real estate transactions, whether it's resale, whether it's assignment, whether it's a new construction, and anything that you do, is you put your money in a trust account. So when you're given the check or the deposit or the bank draft, make sure it says in trust in it at the very end, because it has to go to a trust account. And this is in Ontario, pretty sure it's in Canada wide, North America wide for that matter, trust accounts. And what's a trust account, Michael?
A trust account is basically a bank account that is separate from the main income that you take income draws from.
Operating accounts.
And it's essentially our version of escrow. So the funds are being held until the transaction is actually legitimized and it's been vetted by lawyers and who else? Not real estate managers, but pretty much just real estate lawyers. And the title actually transfers before the funds are actually withdrawn. And it's actually monitored by the Ministry of Finance as well, too, if I'm not mistaken.
No. Okay, so at least in Ontario, the Real Estate Council of Ontario is our governing body in Ontario, and they regulate brokerages based on the main thing they're looking for is to not get ripped off, not ripping off the consumer.
Right.
So they're looking at our trust accounts all the time.
Right.
And there's 3 ways that you can take money in the trust account, and only 3 ways. Anybody know what those 3 are? You know them from classes. I know you know them.
Oh, God.
Number 1 is that the deal completes.
Yes.
Yeah, it closes.
When the deal's completed, both parties are happy, they get title, then the money gets released from that. What's number 2?
Mutual release by both parties.
Mutual release. So both parties agree to take money out of it. It doesn't mean that the deal's dead. They could just agree to take parties out of it, money out of it. Mm-hmm. Maybe they agreed to withdraw the money early, for example, in a rare case like that, which I don't know why both parties would agree to that, but there might be a situation where that happens. Mm-hmm. Then you can mutually agree to release the money out of it. Or if a deal fails, you mutually agree to let some of the money go in terms of a settlement instead of being sued. And the third way is
court order.
There you go. The courts tell you. So that's the results of a lawsuit generally.
A follow-up to this question then, it's a different thread, but it was asking, where can I find assignment sales? Because
there's a lot of sources.
Yeah, there's a lot of sources, but even for, I guess that's why you need a realtor, because there's no really like official site that you can look at, right?
Yeah, so for condo assignments anyway, the builders generally don't allow you to put it on MLS, on the multiple listing service, which is like a repository for all listings, right? Mm-hmm. That generally is in use. The reason why they don't want that is because if they have any leftover inventory, they don't want to compete with their leftover inventory. Mm-hmm. On top of that, MLS has strict rules about price history. Mm-hmm. So once you list it on there, it's there forever, and it's there forever for people to find. So if the market shifts in one certain way, whether it goes up or down or whatever, then you're going to have that anchoring the price, and builders don't want that. They don't want the history. Yeah. So they don't allow you to advertise on MLS. So sometimes you can find MLS, but for the most part, it's off of exclusive listings, right? Which means that like pocket listings, in other words, where it's not listed anywhere. You have one broker representing you, and that broker may shoot it out by word of mouth. They might shoot it in chat groups. They might shoot it in online forums and online boards. And there's a number of companies that I know of. Actually, one of my friends is starting one as well too. But there's a number of them that actually have assignment listings. Now, I don't know how you're going to capture the entire market. It's going to be very impossible to do that. There's large companies that are trying to throw money at it, and they can't do it because they can't just capture all the market. Like, it's hard to beat the MLS. So I don't know.
It kind of sounds very broad right now. Is there a specific place that you guys recommend to look at for anybody that's looking, or should they just talk to a realtor right away?
Well, I mean, I would say that you need a realtor to represent you if you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, for sure. You can do it yourself. Mm-hmm. You can scour those sites that I just mentioned on your own, or you can have somebody that's trusted that would work with you to help you find it.
Yeah, there are some nuances when it comes to an assignment sale. There's some math involved. There's a whole host of like rules and regulations that a builder might have for an assignment sale to be successful. Mm-hmm. So it's good to have someone who's used to the literature and used to going through these documents. But yeah, there's a lot of information online. There's a lot of groups that you can freely join that have regular postings of what's currently available.
Yeah, and there might be things like, closing costs that the assignor may not know to do, right? They might not know, the person buying the assignment, in other words, they might not know that there's closing costs coming up, which is development levies and how to calculate and transfer taxes, and even how to calculate the HST that's owing on the profit that the buyer has to pay, or any kind of assignment fees. Who pays that? And all those things. There's a lot of you're right. There's a lot of nuances.
Sounds very difficult. So like, I know a big spot that people look at is Facebook, but I guess that's where the first question kicks in. How do you find a legit transaction?
How do you not get scammed?
How do you not get scammed? Yeah. The next question here, a little controversial. Should rent control apply to everyone? So
rent control, man. Okay, anyway, whatever. Okay, go on.
So here's the thing. During COVID and after, some provincial governments locked rent below inflation to provide welfare the government couldn't afford to tenants. But unlike income tax, rent control doesn't distinguish between wealth or status. Should it?
Do you want to take it or do you want me to take it?
We can both have our own hot takes on it.
Yeah, because I feel like it's a big landlord versus tenant thing, as well as like, obviously, let's say for me that I'm renting in, I'm like, rent control forever. I'm never leaving, something like that, right?
Yeah. So if I'm being honest, I feel like this whole verbiage on rent control that's currently being used by anyone who wants to be elected into office, it's really a distraction from the true root of the issue, which is there's not enough housing supply. If there were enough housing supply and we still have rental rates that are out of control that people feel like are beyond their means because their income has not kept up with inflation, then yeah, sure, rent control makes sense. But right now you have government interference telling certain property owners, the ones who have owned their real estate or the ones who own pieces of property that have rent controls in place as of November 15, 2018, that they can't raise rents to a certain amount. That's causing a lot of problems for people who actually own those pieces of property who are retired, saying this is like their main income source. And, it reaches a point where it doesn't make it feasible for some people to actually purchase investment real estate, which is needed for housing supply. So I think it's a distraction. It's definitely necessary for most cases, but at the same time, it's not helping us right now. Like, there are bigger issues causing our housing constraints.
That's a very good point. Distraction or not, though, we're not going to be able to supply the amount of housing that we need. Just whether it's the amount of skilled labor, the amount of trades, the amount of cranes, the amount of available equipment, the amount of materials, even for that matter, the approval process. It's just, we can. The demand isn't, like, demand's there, but the affordability is the issue. So not everyone's going to buy it. So anyway, bottom line is it's going to be way too hard to unlock the inventory or the land supply to be able to create the supply of housing that we need to be able to satisfy the demand. It's not going to happen at the end of the day, no matter how you slice it. So that's where I agree that rent control should be in place for, if you look at this micro situation, if you zoom into a particular tenant, like in the case of Neil, for example, where it does make sense. And this is why it's so controversial, because tenants want it, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. But landlords obviously don't want it as well too. And just kind of the two conflicting parts. But overall, in the macro supply, if you zoom out a little bit, I think that rent controls hurt the tenant population in the long run, because if you introduce rent controls and you have less incentive for developers to build purpose-built rentals. Because they're all rent controlled. Yeah. And, we all know that when you're an owner, there's variable costs to it, right? Like the mortgage rates, interest rates that go up and down, tax rates go up and down, maintenance costs go up and down. Insurance, oh yeah, part of maintenance and all that, right? But like all the operating costs will go up and they go at different rates. And inflation, for that matter, is a lot higher for the past, I don't know, however long the rent controls have been in place, 30 years, 40 years. They've always been higher, much higher than what the allowable Ontario rent regulations are for rent controls are. So I think it's silly. I think it's your asset. You should be able to do it. But I get the side where we just don't have enough supply. We'll never get enough supply, at least not in the next decade, to be able to meet the demand that we need. So that's why the rent controls are in place. I just wish it was a little more equitable, though. That's the only thing. And it is what it is.
I mean, you also make a fair point because with rent controls, one disincentivizes people from becoming landlords, which is necessary to create housing supply. And also, two, the fact that, a lot of people feel like they're already grandfathered into their rents, they tend to not move and they stay in the same place just to take advantage of rent controls.
Yeah.
And that further constricts housing supplies as well.
Right. So that in the long run will actually make rentals more or less affordable because the ones that are available will be super high.
Yeah.
The prices will be super high because the demands are. Yeah. So as I'm saying, if you zoom out in the macro perspective, rent controls will hurt tenants overall in general in terms of rent prices.
Yeah, so I saw some of the comments in this thread, and it was basically the same thing. The main point is that in an ideal world, it would just be based on the market.
Free market.
The free market.
The problem is the supply just physically can't get delivered in time to meet the demand that we have now. So I think a better solution is that the government, the whatever, municipal, provincial, federal, whatever government, if you're below a certain level of family income, they should give you rent subsidies so that you can pay market rate rents for it. That's my personal opinion. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'm not a political leader, so I don't know. But,
there's too many politics involved in stuff like that. Okay, the next question here is very simple. Is a house even a good investment right now? That's it. That's all they put.
I mean, it depends.
It can kind of go anywhere.
It depends, on what kind of house, what condition it's in, where it is, what you're buying it for. Are you living in for yourself? Yeah. Are you renting it out? Like, it really depends.
So there's one thing here. They do say that with interest rates are soaring and still going up. So I just don't think it's a good idea to buy.
Oh. Well, okay, that's hard to give advice either way.
Yeah.
Whether it's not to buy or to buy. It depends on the specific individual. Yeah. And the reason why it depends on the specific individual is because it depends on the time horizon of that person.
Yeah.
If you're looking at you're just young and you're starting out and you have like 25 years at least, if not more, then it always makes sense to buy, in my opinion.
Right.
Because you're paying equity. Now, you could take that money and invest it into a fund, whatever, stocks, whatever, and you can get bet on the market and you could potentially make more than you can in real estate for sure. So some people rent and choose to invest elsewhere, whether it's in real estate or stocks or bonds or whatever. There's ways to make money that way, which in theory should offset your rent cost.
Yeah.
Especially if it's rent controlled.
Right.
Right. But in the long run, I think you're building equity using leverage through a mortgage.
Right.
And there's no better way to make money than in real estate.
Nice.
And plenty of reasons why. If your time horizon is short, in other words, if you only have 5 years before you retire and you want to move to a different country or something, that's a different story too, right? Maybe you don't need to invest in your own personal residential real estate, but you can invest in other real estate, even outside of the province, in different rules where they're not rent controlled, where you can buy way cheaper real estate in Texas, for example, where you can have it's like a tenth of our price here, and the rent roll makes sense. The cap rates are a lot higher.
The way I see it is you're paying for a mortgage either way. Like you're either paying for your own mortgage or you're paying for your landlord's mortgage. So
yeah. I always say the difference is one person can get the down payment.
Right. So ultimately, if you can afford it, time horizon. If your time horizon is a lot longer, then pay for your own mortgage rather than your landlord's. If your time horizon is a lot shorter, then by all means, rent is a flexible way to keep your decisions open further down the road, in case you need to make any.
Yeah, it's too general to answer that.
Yeah, no, that was a tough one. There wasn't a lot to it, but I just wanted to see what your answer was, just to test you guys a little bit.
All right, what else we got?
All right, so in Toronto and Vancouver, let's just focus on Toronto. Are we in a housing bubble? So let's start with what is this bubble? What is that?
How do you define a bubble?
How you define a bubble? Yeah.
So I guess you can always look at the average income divided by the average cost of a housing, and the rent to income or I guess you can do the rent, right?
Income
but
to
the
rent.
income to rent or income to purchase price, carrying costs even, is way out of whack. It doesn't make sense anymore. And it used to be that the cost of a house was 3 times your annual salary or whatever it is, right? Now it's like 10 times, if not more, 30 times. They can go super high.
Yeah.
So if you go by that standard, the affordability standard, I think it's a bubble for sure. But not everybody needs to use their regular working income to buy a house. They have money passed down from generations. They might have equity from other places as well too, right? From climbing the property ladder, for example.
Yeah. From
Right.
leveraging.
Yeah, maybe they bought a condo, the 1 bedroom, then now they're partnered up with somebody that also has a 1 bedroom condo. You sell both, you get all of a sudden 2 bedroom. Maybe that 2 bedroom went up in value, and then your earning income potential went up as well too. Maybe doing the starter home. Maybe from the starter home you go to the bigger family home, and for the bigger family home you go to the dream home, and then maybe from the dream home you go back down to the condo. Right. So where are we in a bubble? I mean, compared to the rest of the world, like we're on bubble indexes of the world, but there's some other larger major cities, Hong Kong, New York, San Fran, that are way more expensive than we are. So we're up there. I don't know. That's my answer. What about you, Michael?
I mean, that kind of echoes my thoughts as well. I mean, we're potentially, but it's also hard to say because I know for a fact that if I were to list my house tomorrow and put it at a reasonable market rate, someone will come by and buy it. I think it boils down to area too, because if you're in a good area in a desirable location close to the city, there will always be demand. But if you're, say, further out in the 905 area, then there might be a slight housing bubble that occurred during COVID. Like there were a lot of people that were moving out, and now everyone's trying to move back in because work from home is no longer mandated by certain companies. So maybe there is a housing bubble out there. And that's why we're seeing a larger price adjustment in certain areas rather than downtown. So it's, again, a nuanced question with a lot of different factors to consider.
Because this is going to be on YouTube, and all the YouTube comments are going to be, so I would
ripping
say,
you guys.
Yeah, they're going to say that this is a Ponzi scheme and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, let's just say it's a bubble. But realistically, 40% of people out there don't have mortgages.
Yeah.
There's, of all the homeowners out there.
Right.
40% of people don't have mortgages.
Yeah.
Think of that. So they can afford it.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right.
Okay.
Because you're trading up
No worries.
or down.
Next question here. This one's a little bit of a longer one. So make sure you're listening. How to dispute closing fees through Tarion post-closing. Okay. So if I need to dispute certain closing fees through Tarion,
You can't do that. Well, you
Can
tell
you?
the government land transfer taxes don't make sense.
Here, let's see. Let's go through
okay,
this.
sorry about
We'll go through it together, and then we'll see
right,
what
all
they're
right,
they're talking about.
Okay.
Because questions on Reddit can always be worded really weirdly. So if I need to dispute certain closing fees through Tarion, are Constellation claims the right channel?
Conciliation.
Conciliation. Through the right channel, and is there a timeline on when to submit one? Also, does anyone know if Tarion only allows self-representation when it comes to filing these claims, or can I have a lawyer represent me? Just looking for direct answers to these specific questions to better understand the process. Just seems like a person that's just a little lost. They might not be well guided, or they're working on it alone.
It's a first-time new condo purchaser for sure. So first of all, yes, you can have a lawyer represent you with Tarion. Absolutely. Why can't you? But second of all, conciliation is meant for when the builder and the purchaser don't agree on repairs and the cost of items. So if there's something like, I don't know, their unit flooded and there's mold and there's all these issues and they couldn't agree on the price to fix it or the amount of repairs that they did.
Right.
And there's just the referee that steps in between to get those two parties to kind of match up and, either force their hand, right? For the developer to pay or for the purchaser to accept it.
Yeah.
That's what it usually is. Not for closing costs. Closing costs are pretty much set out in the pre-purchase. I mean, the land transfer tax rates are the land transfer tax rates.
Yeah.
It depends on the purchase price and when you bought it.
They're usually very transparent too and forthcoming with the closing costs because they don't want there to be issues when they're waiting for the deal to actually close.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in other words, to echo that, all of the things you sign up for in a new construction purchase there's a reason why it's 21 pages, and there's a reason why you need a lawyer to review the document with you, because they're going to go through not only that 21 pages or 25 pages, whatever it is, for the agreement purchase and sale. There's going to be condominium documents, disclosure documents, they call it, that forms a condominium altogether. So if you step back a little bit, a condominium is really just a legal document that's maybe like 100 pages as a declaration. Because if you can imagine, it's just like 400 people living together in the same structure. So there has to be some sort of rules in place. And that sort of rules in place is what is known as a declaration. And it tells you exactly what the rules are. Yep. If you can have pets or not, whether you can have an outdoor barbecue, whether you have like what the unit boundaries are, things like that.
What the financial responsibilities of each individual owner is.
Voting directions of the board of directors, for example.
I like to think of it as a not-for-profit company.
It is not-for-profit, 100% not-for-profit.
Not-for-profit company, and that's exactly how, and they run it like a business.
Oh. Well, yeah, I guess. You have a budget, and you have to balance that budget for sure, and you actually can't go below and above it. So anyway, that's the declaration for itself, but the agreement of purchase and sell will actually outline, probably around clause 6 or so, usually outlines what the purchaser's responsibility is. And this is probably the person complaining on Reddit is probably about the development levies that they didn't know they had to pay for. Yep. Section 37, parkland dedication costs. So basically, in other words, when you're forming a new building of 400 people, there's services that need to be created that need to service those 400 people. Yeah. Schools, plumbing, water supply, electricity, sewer lines, roads, garbage services, police, fire, ambulance, transit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. The big things that we take all for granted if you don't know, if you're not a homeowner, right? So if you're dropping 400 more people in there, or more than that, 600 people, just say 2.5 people per residence or whatever, that's probably closer.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, yeah.
Right? So let's call it 600 people. They need to pay their share of those startup fees, not the ongoing. So there's ongoing maintenance through property taxes, but the startup fees for actually adding that more capacity to it. Yeah. And that is all outlined in clause 6 or 7 or 8 of your agreement purchase and sale. Generally, they might be capped to a certain amount. The levies are capped. But then there's also things that when they cap those levies that they purposely omit, like the development charges, right? Some builders may do that sneakily, or the lawyers might do that, so that when they get the bill to end, the surprise bill, they're like, what the heck? How come I had to pay another 25 grand or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Right? They weren't expecting that. So that's probably what they're arguing about. And Tarion is not the process for that. Tarion is for deficiencies. Yeah. So and failed deposits.
It's kind of like, don't do this on your own, man.
You need help. It's, you know what? Honestly, real estate is a very complex legal thing that we all take for granted, right? And we don't know about. And if you don't know what you're doing, you definitely need help.
I mean, it's the biggest purchase you're going to make in your life. So like, why not get help?
One of the most important things you need. Everyone needs shelter, right? Everyone needs a place to live, unless you're homeless. Yeah. So, all right. What else?
All right, here we go. So, where would supply come from for a crash? A lot of people think a crash is coming on par or worse than 2008/2009. So, serious question, where will the supply come from for that? A lot of people dead in a war or pandemic, like builders building enough new homes. Now, I love remote jobs, but only so many jobs do that, and only so many houses can be near those jobs. Massive economic crash, where? Airbnb bust. Considering how many Airbnb are rooms or tiny houses in the backyards, I don't think there's nearly enough Airbnb homes to make an impact. Plus, we all can't live in Gatlinburg or Blue Ridge, so I guess this is in a different area. And how many Airbnbs will simply be turned into long-term rental homes if the Airbnb market busts? Long-winded, there's a lot of parts to that. But I guess the main question, and something that we're dealing with, where would supply come from?
To balance the market. So the question is basically, how do we get more supply to balance the market so that prices kind of even out, or level off, and it becomes more affordable like they were back in, I don't know, whatever, name the year.
Yes.
2008.
Or earlier, whatever. Yeah. How? Okay.
I feel like we talk about this all the time.
No, we do.
Just creating more supply.
Well, it's not,
but it's not as easy as that.
Or even getting rid of demand. Like, I mean, you can do that as well. I mean,
the way that
chase people away from Toronto, sure.
Well, the way that demand trumps everything really is the interest rates. Like nobody can qualify. Not even nobody can afford it. Nobody can qualify for these rates. Yeah. Right? If your interest rates are at 6%, with a stress test, you're looking at 8% qualification, even 9% at some point. Like, how can anybody qualify for that? Like, just the numbers don't make sense. You have to be seriously, like, if you crunch the numbers, it's going to be like, you got to make $500,000 or whatever it is, 300,000 or something. How do people actually make that? right?
And
So
even the house that you can buy is like, you're not going to get that much of a loan, even if you qualify.
right. So that is pushing the affordability down. So the qualification down. And in fact, it's probably just pushing the price down. No matter how much supply we create, it's still not going to come at affordable levels because there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. The cost of land, the cost of labor, the cost of supplies, the cost of materials and all that, right?
Yeah,
And
because the people who are
profit
building
from it.
these houses are also leveraged too. Like they need to seek a mortgage, they need a construction loan. to be
Yeah,
able
not
to
very
build
many
these things.
builders are self-financed, in other words, right? They need financing and they need to show financial viability to the lender and to the bank to be able to borrow the hundreds of millions of dollars it costs to create a new building or new subdivision or whatever it is, right?
You
So
buy the land, get the materials, and get the people, and actually build.
right, because the bank, if you think about it, is not going to lend you money to a losing project that has no viability and no pre-sales for that matter.
Exactly.
So they have to show that the proof of concept is there. Now, where's the supply going to come from? If we can't build it fast enough, we don't have enough money for it and all that, and it's not Airbnb, it's not existing supply, it's going to be brand new. Well, good question. You know, like the government can step in and create these block homes of like, you know, ghettos, I guess you could say, and there's housing accelerator fund and things like that. Like, the government's going to start, the federal government's going to start allocating money to it, especially with the political pressure that's going on. Yeah. But I think that, the overall interest rates are going to trump everything, no matter how many homes we create. You know, maybe there's a new tiny home thing that we're going to do. Maybe the whole, the four units as of right in municipalities now. In Toronto, we're allowed to have minimum 4 units, or we're allowed to have up to 4 units plus a garden suite, so 4+1, essentially 5 units, which will basically intensify and densify. Traditionally, what was only you're allowed one family per home. Now you can have up to 4 or potentially 5 families per home.
I hope something like that helps, because it's like, it just really sounds like we're relying on the mom and pop investors to open up something like that.
Well, who else is going to do it?
Right.
Well, historically, I mean, the government has, a long time ago, the government did actually build wartime bungalows, and they still exist around this area. And that was just because of the sudden need for housing.
Did you know that's what CMHC was actually created for back then?
Is CMHC that old?
Yeah, it's created for post-war.
Wow.
To create the housing. Anyway, so CMHC is a federal government, and that's how they actually government entity, and that's actually how they create housing, or their channel to create housing. So there's a lot of good programs for residential housing through the CMHC, through multiplex, through apartment buildings to get cheaper financing to help you build rental construction. Right. So that's also a way to get it, to create the supply. There's no new GST elimination on purpose-built rentals. That's also helping as well too, eliminating the development levies for the small, 4 units on the single family conversions.
Right.
That's going to create some more supply. And I don't think it's just one source that's going to actually create the supply that we need. The elimination of Airbnb, or the less demand of Airbnb because less people are using tourism because the cost of inflation is so high, right? Yeah. So all these different aspects will eventually help us balance off the supply and demand balance. And maybe it's an immigration policy thing too as well. Maybe we lower the amount of, but the problem with immigration, if we don't immigrate people, is that our population is aging and we're not going to be able to support the social services we need, right? And the CPP and all that stuff. So that's why.
Yeah.
Good answer. Okay, this is the last one for today, everybody. So, are rental prices starting to come down? I'm thinking of buying a condo and renting it out. Average 1 bedroom is $2.4K a month. With a large enough down payment and rent stabilizing, I think I can make it work. Any tips on this?
Truth be told, I don't really see rents stabilizing. If anything, I see them being very steady. And again, depends on that person's particular circumstance. If they have the down payment ready, if they can actually make it work, and also what are they actually looking for out of investment property? Like, are they looking for cash flow, or are they looking for equity growth? That would depend on their time horizon. If they're looking for an investment property and they already have a good place where their rent is grandfathered in, then yeah, sure, maybe they can make some money off of it.
It won't be grandfathered. It'd be not rent controlled, right?
Well, no, wherever they're living now, whatever their personal circumstances. So that really depends. Like,
I think the question was more of is $2,400 probably can support their cost of purchasing right now. That's what it is. And if it goes down, they won't be able to afford it and may not be a good choice for them to invest in. That's what this person, I think, is concerned about.
Yeah.
I think in the long run, rent will grow because less and less people are able to afford houses as they go up in price, because I don't think prices are going to come down. They're just not. They can't. the cost of creating new supply has not come down. Unless land prices come down and wages come down and the cost of materials and shipping and all that kind of stuff, if all that comes down, which is not going to because of inflation,
Right.
because it's all designed to have 2% inflation.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is going to go up in price,
Right.
by design,
By design.
because the government's also reducing their federal debt. Don't forget,
Yeah.
by injecting inflation into it to just basically make it go away, because the value of future money is going to be worth more than current money. So the debt we have currently is going to be worth less in the future. That makes sense. So anyway, let's just give it that inflation is going to always be there. So the cost of housing will always go up, in my opinion.
Yes.
And that means less and less people are going to be able to afford it, which means more and more renters are going to exist. And if you look at any clues of, again, large major cities, rental ownership is just like, it's just part of their vocabulary. Not even rentals, roommates are part of their vocabulary, right? And I think some of those major cities, I was just telling another group today, my high school friends, that being a landlord is actually going to be out of reach for most people as well too, for some of these major cities. And it's just going to be properties that just passed down through the generations.
Yeah.
Because the yields don't make sense anymore. Yields are compressing.
Yeah.
So, long story, rents is going to go up. In my
Okay.
opinion.
Okay, well that's good for this person here. What's his name? Sansel123.
Okay. Awesome. It sounds depressing, but it's not. There's ways to get into the home ownership tract, especially now if you partner up with people, or there's going to be way more. Oh, you know what a good solution I think is? It's going to come up at some point.
For supply or for the housing market? in general?
affordability.
Affordability. Okay.
And I can't wait till this becomes more prevalent, is land leases. So it's basically like a mobile home park. No, I'm serious, man.
Yeah.
It's like you're leasing land. It's like you're paying a condo fee at the end of the day. That's what it's like,
Yeah.
right? And you know, like you wouldn't buy into it if you think the developer's going to rip you off and raise the land prices now that you have a house in it. So they have to basically, it'll be institutional money that just wants a steady, nice return. That's not a bond. That's based on real estate, and it's going to be like a 2-3% inflation, whatever, just like a condo. And you own the house, but you don't own the land.
Right.
So it's kind of like that VinFast, that car, right? Where the Vietnamese car, where you own the car, but you rent the battery.
Oh, I didn't know if that was the thing.
Offset some of the cost. Same thing. And I think that's a way to reduce pricing of houses.
Yeah.
That's one innovation. There's going to be so many different new innovations that come out, I'm
Yeah.
sure, in the future, but I think it's just one of them.
There's so many ways to like tackle this problem. So no, that's a good idea over there.
And if anybody wants to partner on it, I'd be happy to do it with you, because I think it's a great solution.
Okay, so that concludes our podcast for today. So everybody, you can find us on all our socials. You could find Ken on Instagram, Kenneth Yim Homes.
Yep.
Find Michael. I think what's yours?
Hello, I am Michael.
Hello, I'm Michael.
And you find Neil Andrew.
That's a few W's here. We have a bunch of listings available for you guys. You can find them on our website. We have a lot of pre-construction projects as well. That is available, always available. We have so many that are coming up and so many that we can talk about to you guys. So hit us up on our website, find our email. We'll link everything below.
And we not only do, by the way, pre-construction condos, if anybody's doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like we also do commercial. We do like anything, basically everything to do with real estate, whether it's single family homes, multiplexes, apartment buildings, office space, commercial, residential.
You name it.
construction,
We're dealing with everything
leases,
real
all
estate.
that. That's what we have a team for. Anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you next time.
Bye, guys.
Add it up.
Thanks for sticking out to the very end. I hope you got some value out of this. Do me a favor, please press like and subscribe. But more than anything, leave me some feedback so we know what to produce for you going forward. Thanks again.